How's this been so far? Maybe we can just have an informal conversation while we're waiting for other people to join us. Hi, Amy, Christy. Saw a few others on. Will, Alita. How's it been so far? Has this been helpful and interesting?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys for hosting this great event. It's been jam-packed full of great information and already ready to connect with a bunch of folks to continue the conversation.
Good, good. And we're just getting started. It's a lot to take in, but it's all good. Agnes, you've been active on Slack. You're getting a lot out of this, hopefully.
I am definitely, yes.
Good. What are some of your takeaways so far?
Well, I've been taking notes here and there. I really like I think the one session that really stood out for me this morning was the going 100% on impacts of the roundtable discussion. I really liked how there was a lot of talk about capital reallocation. There's also something about, what else is there? I think someone also mentioned an activist toolkit that may have been Lauren, so that's something I'll definitely look into as well.
All right, thanks. Thanks for sharing on the spot. Anyone else want to share anything? We have a minute, 1 minute, if anyone wants to grab a drink or anything before we. Oh yeah, that's right. Stephanie, you've been posting the art.
I did more than I posted.
Oh, I love it.
Show us a few.
I can decorate my room, I guess. We've got recreate a future where we can all thrive. I don't know. I just took quotes as they were going and I doodled because that's what was making me stay focused. So
after a long day, you should post those. Post those on social, different social media. Those are great.
No, I can decorate my room in quotes.
There you go. Amanda, are you still on here? Like some people are still trying to navigate over. Hey, Chintan, thanks for joining.
Of course, pleasure to be here.
Liz, what do you think? Should we get going? We ended up a little ahead of schedule. I think that's why some people are thrown off. We're up to 25.
It looks like as soon as he said, should we get going? Like multiple people just popped in. So.
That's right. That's right. Okay, well, why don't we kick it off and get started? So Liz and I are joined by Paige Anderson, who's one of our students at the center. And we're going to start by announcing the winner of the Distance Award. And I just realized, I don't know if you saw it in Slack, I just realized they're probably asleep. Hopefully they're asleep, unless they're really serious about all this. So we might have to remind them again in the morning who the winner is. But Paige has been behind the scenes helping us put this together for the last few months, working tirelessly and cheerfully through it all. Paige, do you want to introduce yourself briefly, just where you're from, where you're studying, what you do here, and then we'll give you a drum roll and you can announce who won the Distance Award.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Paige Anderson. I'm a native of Utah, but I am currently taking a year off from Harvard, where I'm planning on studying economics. And I've been helping the Sorenson Impact Investing Center put together the summit for this year.
And doing an amazing job. Okay, so you want a drum roll? Liz, you want to give the drum roll?
Sure.
Yeah, so hailing from very, very far away, the person that we saw that was the farthest away attending the summit this year is Mwila Lwando from Zambia, which is over 9,300 miles away.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, right, exactly. Everybody, we could go off of mute. Take yourself off mute for a second, and we'll give 2 seconds of clapping in absentia.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Paige. Thanks, Liz. So now we're going to get a bit more interactive, although we're probably pretty tired. So hopefully people got a little snack and something after a long day. Chintan is a good friend of mine and a longtime friend of the center and a longtime participant in the summits. And so he and I are going to briefly facilitate, if you will, some breakouts. And we're small enough, we might not need to do very many. We're going to have a few questions, basically. We'll have a few questions to discuss in the breakout just for people to get to know each other. And then we'll come back and debrief as a whole group, back into breakouts and back up. But Chintan, do you want to introduce yourself briefly and how you've gotten into the impact space and some of your role?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeff. And it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here with you all. So Jeff and I have known each other for a few years, but I would say that I'm an entrepreneur and a lawyer, maybe an entrepreneur first. In that I was a big corporate, big firm corporate lawyer for a number of years, and then back in 2010 decided to start a social enterprise, a social venture, which happens to be a law firm, but a law firm that's kind of in service of an idea. And that idea is that, what we try to do is help kind of visionary folks from around the world who are doing meaningful and worthwhile things, right? Kind of moving the needle on important solutions to big problems. We use the tools of our trade, which is law, to kind of help make that happen. It has been a real pleasure and an honor to kind of be a participant at Sorenson, Sorenson's conference, and then also to kind of partake in the conversations, which are always the best parts of the conference. So today, I have, I guess a really great opportunity to kind of help have a conversation with you all, right? And kind of, I think, the topic is really this idea of intentionality, right? This idea of why, right? Why are we doing what we're doing? And so, even as an entrepreneur, right, I was just saying kind of what, to me, what's the point of my company? What's the point of my firm? What's the point of the work that we do is really kind of how I focus, what I do, how I think about it, how I talk about it, the language, and it helps me kind of keep an eye on the ball, as it were. And so today, I think we heard some really interesting and very candid conversations around, this what is in some ways a radical idea, right? This idea of unapologetically targeting, supporting, kind of being an ally to, and wind in the sails of entrepreneurs of color. And to me, it's an incredibly important issue that hits close to home, because I view entrepreneurship as one of the greatest engines of personal freedom, of wealth creation, of community development. I've seen it in my own kind of experience and with the people that we work with. And so what I'd love to kind of bring you all into, especially given that we've had an opportunity to kind of be inspired by some of the great kind of ideas that have been discussed earlier today, is a couple of questions, right? So I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way that we want to do this is maybe break up into two rooms, or two or more, I guess, the teams will kind of help make that happen. But essentially, this is an idea for you all to get the chance to kind of talk and share ideas with one another. So what I'd love for folks to do is to break out into groups, go around the room, share your name, your organization, your role in that organization, choose a designated speaker or a designated typist to collect some ideas, some interesting thoughts and ideas, and kind of pop them into the chat. And you guys will obviously have a chance to discuss for about 20 minutes. And then what I'd like to do is reconvene us all to have a broader discussion. And Jeff and I will try to kind of moderate what I'm sure is going to be a very lively conversation.
And we have a Google Doc with the questions on there. Oh, perfect. Amanda just dropped it into Slack or to the chat there. Everybody grab that, because once you go into breakouts, you don't have access to this main one. So click on that. For the first.
And I can read it out. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah. Now that I see it up there in the chat. So the first question is, what are some of the key factors for building an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem? First part, right? So an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the second part of that is, what can you personally be doing to support this? What are you doing? What can you be doing? What ideas do you have? What do we need to see to happen so that we can get to, that ideal of an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Does that make sense? So we're the team. Amanda, who's the amazing wizard behind the scenes, is going to put us all into breakout rooms now to introduce ourselves and discuss that for a few minutes. See you in a bit.
Are you all ready?
Ready to
Take
go.
us away, Amanda.
All right. Hi, everyone. If you're here, they will be coming back as a group at 4:40 before they go into their next break. Everyone is in a smaller group discussing a question, and then they'll all come back, and I can send you all into another group for the next session.
I don't know who the host is, but the ones that are sitting here waiting, can we chat and get to know each other?
Oh, right now, everyone, they went into the first breakout
Right.
but they'll be coming back in 10 minutes. And then you guys can there's multiple people that just joined this meeting. And so then we'll pose another question and you'll be sent to a smaller breakout room.
Right. And I was just saying, for us that are waiting for the next 10 minutes, can we chat and say hi and introduce each other?
Please talk to
We might as well have our own little breakout rooms as we're sitting here.
Right?
Of course.
Kind of a radical breakout room, I think. We could go.
Woohoo! Aren't we all
Here.
doing things
This is
differently?
Cindy. I'm actually here just because I'm kind of just monitoring as Chintan's PR person. So I'm kind of like a silent participant. So that's
Well,
why
Cindy,
I'm.
you don't have to be silent. You're a person
But I just
too.
wanted. I'm just kind of on to see how, just kind of watch and observe what's going on and what everyone's talking about. So that's why I'm here and not speaking. So sorry. That's why I'm not in a chat room, or I'm just kind of hanging out until everybody reconvenes.
So are they going to move us, or are we going to?
No, Vic, we're
Let's
going to
go
sit
for
here
it,
for
Leslie.
10 minutes. We're here for 10 minutes, so why don't we get to know each other?
Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you, Leslie.
Pleasure, Vic.
Who else
Hello
is here?
there, Sam and Bonita
Sam,
and Amanda
Bonita, Cindy,
and Cindy. You're
Amanda.
important, Cindy.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a production person, so I'm just also in the background in multiple chats, but you guys are welcome to talk amongst yourselves.
Sure.
If you want to click on the first question that's in the chat over here, module 2, question 1, you can see what they're talking about and what they'll talk about when they all come back.
It's no longer in the chat. At least I don't see it.
Yeah.
When you go into a separate rooms, the chat disappears. It's a Zoom dysfunction.
So Vic, what do you do?
I'm sorry.
Can you copy paste it in? That would be great. There you go. What are some key factors building an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem? What are you doing, or can you to support this? So I'll read this out loud, maybe, so we can all sync up. We do have our own breakout here, right?
Yes,
Until
sir.
they move us. It says, what are some key factors for building an inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem? What are you doing, or what can you do to support this? Thoughts?
How about this, Bonita? What are you doing and what are you working on?
Okay, so, and part of those questions actually have some guiding directions as well. I'm actually with the Sorenson Impact Center. I'm on the back end as well, supporting this event. So that's why I'm not in any sessions, but part of the guiding questions or prongs prior to the questions is 1, identifying a facilitator, 2, introducing yourself, your role and organization you're coming from, and then going into the question. So if we want to have like a little breakout right now, and if you can just introduce yourself and organization, your role. I'm Bonita Teasley. I'm with the Sorenson Impact Center. I'm Director of Data Policy and Performance Innovation with the center.
Why don't we introduce ourselves? Leslie, you want to start? You got the energy going. I like it.
Sure. Leslie Peterson, here from Santa Cruz, California. And
no wonder. Okay.
I am working on rebuilding and rejuvenating desolate areas in U.S. cities via education, housing, community centers, and employment. And we just launched our first big city that we're doing, which is called Hope Houston, which is under the umbrella of Hope USA. And each city will have its own vertical of hope. Utah, or not Utah, Salt Lake City, Chicago, Sacramento, under the umbrella of Hope USA.
And the intention of the program is what? Is this
It is rebuilding and rejuvenating desolate areas
desolate
in US
area?
cities.
Oh,
So for instance, we're starting with 3 elementary schools in Houston, and we've already been collaborating with them to find out what their projects are and their initiatives and programs and what they have, what they don't have, their challenges and barriers, their goals, their dreams, etc. And we're bringing forth the resources and services that they're missing, that they want, that they need, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I was talking to Principal Mitchell at Bumblebee School, and she has 467 students at her school. 95% of those kids are transient or homeless. 95%. That's
Wow.
440 plus kids in one school. So housing obviously is a big part, because you can't learn and get educated without a roof over your head and if you're starving. So she gets them at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're starving, they're dirty, and they're just emotionally and physically in chaos. So the first half of the day, she's feeding them, cleaning them, and grounding them. And then the second half of the day, actually able to start educating them. So we're buying up 37 acres in one of the 3 lots, and we're building out 108 doors of transitional housing and 225 doors of permanent housing with retail below. The full back length of the property is going to be a community garden and community farming with small and mid-sized animals. There's going to be a gym in the back with an auditorium and a commercial kitchen. And middle center, there's going to be 2 two-story buildings for the community center, where there's going to be sports, music, arts, mentoring, tutoring, babysitting, family resource center, support group, Bible study, choirs, 10 vocational skills training programs, GED and 2 and 4 year college programs, a tech lab for tech skills training, like the vocational skills, and. And then so
that's really, like, I'm really fascinated by that, because
you should see my Venn diagram.
Sounds like
my Venn diagram
with the
has
initiative
education
that you're focusing on is actually, it's addressing the whole child, right? It's not just the aspect of education, but as well as directing support to the families and to the communities. How are you funding? Like, what does the funding look like for that?
I'm raising it privately. I'm raising $333 million from private entities in the offices. In 6 weeks, I've gotten a commitment of $68 million, and we're plugging ahead. So if you ever see my Venn diagram, you'll see how this operates, Bonita, because you're spot on. Education is in the north, and housing is in the west. That intersection is the intersection of reigniting one's light. The housing with the community center, that interaction and intersection is rejuvenating one's hope. The community center with the education or with the employment, that intersection is restoring one's spirit. And as individuals, whether they're from birth to death, are building their confidence and they're gainfully employed, they're going to want to continuously educate themselves so that they can get promoted and whatnot. So employment is engaged with education, and that is rebuilding one's dreams, community, and economy. And at the center is one human soul.
Interesting. Well, Leslie didn't just stole the spotlight. Like, she's introduced herself, and no one else.
Damn, what are you up to?
I'm an educator, so I find it very interesting.
No, Bonita, we'll talk more.
Okay.
We'll talk more. Yeah. Put your
Is there a
contact
place
info
for people like Leslie to put her proposals so that people can grab onto this?
Can you repeat that one more?
I'm sorry.
What
He
did you
asked,
say?
was there a platform for like your Venn diagram and what you just outlined as relates to your proposal? Is there a place for that to actually be populated so other people can view it?
Right, enable it through this process.
Yes, yes. And you know, one of our key partners is the United Nations SDG Impact Fund. We're with the UNCF. We're with communities and schools.
Well, I'm talking about, you know, all these organizations usually collapse when it gets to actually grounding it. This has been my experience. What I'm looking at is the individuals here that can support you in the process through this program that keeps the momentum behind you.
Oh,
keeps-
absolutely. It
You
would
know
be-
what I mean? So it has more of
Absolutely.
a community aspect to it. One of the biggest things that I've learned is that we get so corporatized with our thinking
nope.
that we enable through community and support people like you who have the passion to keep it going when the road gets rough. So
Well, here's a surprise for you, Vic. Those people in Houston who actually step up to the plate, those community members that step up to the plate out of the goodness of their heart, out of their spirit of wanting to better themselves and better others and better their community, I'm going to give them the opportunity to buy their apartment so they can be homeowners for the rest of their lives. They'll be homeowners instead of renters for the rest of their lives. As these people progress, then they're going to outgrow their apartment and they're going to want to sell it and go buy a single family residential. I'm going to buy them out at market price. They take their equity and go buy their home. I'm going to bring the price back down to the low income level and help out another family progress.
Nice, nice.
no, I'm with it. What I'm saying is this community, this gathering has to have a way to be able to support you at the grounded level to move it forward so that your incredible vision actually happens. That's what I want to see happen with this collaboration right here on the screen. Because my
Leslie-
experience has been that you go down that path, it's an incredible vision, and you've got the power and the momentum and the energy to do it. But corporate wise, the model collapses too far down, you know, near the end. And
I quit the
it's
corporate
because
world
it
after
doesn't have a
5 years
community
because it doesn't work.
anchor.
Corporate structure does not work.
Right. So this, what I'm saying for those of you that are listening, is how do we support a person like her? And this is the future of the new impact, is a community-based program that supports the Leslies of the world.
And get this,
Before any investing happens. Before.
well, and to get this last piece of the puzzle, this came to me about, back in December, January timeframe, because I was flying from Houston to Akron, Ohio, and I ran into a veteran's wife, and she was sharing with me what we do to our vets after decades of service and everything that, and risking their lives and all of that stuff. We pretty much throw them out on the streets. So what came to me is in my permanent housing, section of the two, this one, in all of my permanent housing, I'm going to have about 20 to 25% doors for veterans, so that, get this, they're used to 15 hours of structure from waking up at 5 and eating and training and working out and drilling and doing all the things that they do when there's 15 hours of structure. I'm going to hire them to mentor the people of poverty so that they can teach and guide these people who've never had the skills and discipline and mindset of even accomplishing anything, because they're the third, fourth, fifth generation of poverty. You know, they've been in survival mode their whole life. So we can uplift the lowest minimum standards to a higher standard. And the veterans now have a purpose again in life.
Yeah.
Leslie and Vic, can we jump in?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. We were all out in many breakout rooms and came back here to the main one to your very rigorous conversation. So maybe we can just take a moment. You can give us the high level context. Vic, you're advocating strongly for greater support of Leslie. Someone tell us what Leslie is doing.
Well, Leslie's changing the world at a grassroots level. And one of the experiences I've had, I'm a Silicon Valley guy, is that our corporate models work only to a certain level. Our investment models only work to a certain level. When it gets to a certain point where we're actually interrelationally active with the people that we're trying to support, the corporate models collapse. So people like Leslie, we need to create in this environment a communal model that actually accelerates her beyond the corporatized framework that we have today, that actually allows it to happen. What does that look like? That will be a conversation that's secondary to Leslie, but Leslie, it would be the enabler for people like you who have the power and the potential that I hear in your voice. Plus, you've thought about this, you have a plan, but to get that moving forward at the grassroots level. So this difference between corporate investment and grassroots, we've got to build a better bridge there. That's what I'm saying. I hope people have some feedback on that.
Can I ask a question? Are we trying to determine how we change and readapt policy? Because I think policy is where the playground begins. And then from policy, we then develop the methodology to put people in a number of places. We're talking about housing. We've got to educate the policymakers to allow affordable housing or a system of housing that's going to facilitate the people who need housing. If we're talking about homelessness, it's still another policy level, and we've got to do that. So I think we've got a broad base of education that needs to take place in order for us to do this effectively. This Leslie has such a passion, and sometimes that passion gets in the way of the policymakers because they don't deal with things from a passionate point of view. They deal it from what they think is a practical point of view, and then they look out the window and see all the homelessness and see all the disenfranchised individuals, whether it's people of color or not, because they're all in the same category, except we identify them like that. So are we working as a collaborative group to deal with the policy? And if we are, we're now going to be able to manage those investments, if it's individual or collectively, to make sure that we're putting the right policies in place to put into the right infrastructure to take care of the people that need the help. I think I'm on point here.
So yeah, so going up again to a level to the question, we were talking about what is needed, what components of the ecosystem are needed to help create a flourishing, vibrant, and diverse entrepreneurial ecosystem. So we heard grassroots work. Vic, you're talking about financing mechanisms. James, you're talking about policies. Anything else come out from our groups? Anything else, Chintan, in your group or any other groups that came out?
We had a fantastic conversation. I'm just going to throw out a few. Or actually, you know what? We actually had a designated person. So I will throw out one, and I will invite I'll invite some other conversation as well, right? So to me, I think one of the ones that really kind of pulled it all together was this idea that everyone has a role to play, right? All of us, right? Whether we're the entrepreneur or the investor or, it doesn't matter where you are, right? You could be anywhere in that ecosystem. You're a part of that ecosystem. And we all have a role to play. And part of a way to kind of focus that, right? Part of the way to think about what that role is, and this was the other kind of, I thought, brilliant point that came out of our discussion was, it kind of starts with just helping people, right? Because as an entrepreneur, that's what you're thinking about, right? Like, how am I helping people, right? As an impact investor, as a social entrepreneur, right? That's a common theme, right? Kind of, what's the problem that I identify, and how can I get involved and help people, right? And I think we all, are part of this ecosystem.
So to address James's point, policy, yes, policy is important, but sometimes we need to get away from policy because policy can be too structured and too restrictive and to a lot of things. And I'll share with you, I agree with policy because you have to participate some way. When I presented Hope Houston to Mayor Turner and all of the city council back in late February, early March, Mayor Turner said, Leslie, and he actually gave me more than just the 3 minutes. He actually gave me about 7 minutes. He goes, I absolutely want you to contact my office, and I'm going to give you my number one person to collaborate with to make this happen, and on and on and on. And I want you to identify any and every single city council member that you're touching on, and I am instructing them to support you in every way. When I actually got to the conversations with the directors of all these people, basically what the mayor is looking for is somebody like me to implement what I'm doing to better his city, because the city isn't planning on doing it. They don't have the funds for it. And that's one of the reasons why I came out of retirement 3 years ago, was because I was so pissed off about the trillions of dollars that have been thrown in these categories of education and housing and community centers and employment for the last 3 to 5 decades, and we still have a huge problem. It's going to be us private individuals and private entities that actually make the real change. Yes, collaborate with policymakers and blah, 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 and that's fine. They can take all the credit, but I just want to get it done.
Right. So individuals taking action as well. Lolita, I saw you came off of mute. Do you want to share some of the things that came out of your group?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. A few of the things that came out, patient, flexible, catalytic capital, absolutely necessary to support entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that are not able to tap into family and friends type of financing or traditional financing. So you have to approach it from a different viewpoint. Social human capital, collaboration. And it is going to be very important to also include and listen to the entrepreneur and the voices in the community that you're serving in order to shape the work that you're doing.
Great, thank you. And then Kim in chat said, everyone at the table. So the different players that we've been talking about here, government, business, donors, et cetera, as well as the community, Lolita, that you're talking about, the people that are trying to be served. So not just impact, but the right impact, indeed, deep impact. Chintan, what do you say? Should we go to the next question?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to kind of echo that last point, right? Because a lot of times when people think about stakeholders at the table, people are thinking about the investor, the entrepreneur, you know, kind of the capital and, you know, the people that have the loudest voices or the biggest, you know, platforms. But I think part of the biggest challenge, and I think it's such a brilliant point, and it's worth underscoring, is that the folks who are, you know, the focus of that impact, right? And part of that is to say, all right, these aren't, you know, this isn't a charitable, you know, these aren't charitable targets, right? They're kind of actual stakeholders in the conversation. They're part of building the solution, whatever it's going to be. I think that's where success really lies. I've seen it, you know, kind of, and as have you, Jeff, and I've seen the opposite of it. And I think it's a brilliant point.
A phrase I hear a lot with, especially with local activist organizations, is nothing about us without us.
Love
you know,
it.
just bringing us into the conversation deeply. Tiana, are you still on here? I saw Tiana earlier. She may have dropped off. Tiana, can I put you on the spot? Can you take 30 to 40 seconds to talk about the methodology, the mixed methodology that we use to get the qualitative community-based understanding into the projects that we work on? That might be helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I did mention this briefly in my small group breakout, just really highlighting kind of the paradigm by which we operate at Sorenson. And that paradigm is that the people closest to the problem have the solution. And so it is really just our position to come in with the resources and, you know, all the tools that we come with as academics, as, you know, researchers, as policy influencers. We come in and we say, okay, we're here to serve. You know, what do you need and how can we bridge that gap? Because oftentimes we hear, you know, us being at the University of Utah, there's always that critique that, you know, we are in the ivory towers. And so we're, you know, innovating in isolation, right? And so Sorenson, one of the things that I love about what we do is that we are kind of that bridge builder where we're able to take this innovation and really bring it to the people that we're trying to help and support, but do it in a way that's meaningful to them. And so much of our work is really about kind of being that bridge and that translator between what is the research and the evidence saying works, but then also what is needed, what do the people want? And then how do we kind of, you know, bridge those things? And it's really important for us to have everybody at the table. Whoever wants to be there, we want them there, you know? And so that's really, I think, the crux of the work that we do with Sorenson, at Sorenson.
Thanks for that.
Dr.
Spot.
All right, Jeff.
Can I jump in?
Oh, yeah, please.
I've experienced working for the aging community. I've experienced going to meetings that I was pretty much the only true senior in the room. And I think the thing that I come out of there with is that the people who are supposedly fixing and organizing and making policy for the seniors, nobody in there is really talking to seniors, they're talking to each other. And meeting after meeting after meeting that I attend, I find the room is filled with the administrators of these alleged policies, with the people who make the policies, but not the people who are affected by the policies. So I think there's got to be two learning curves here. One is we've got to teach the policymakers how to communicate with the people who need the system to facilitate them. And then we've got to teach the people who are subject to the problems of the system to understand the terminology so that they can be able to interact with the policymakers and say, look, I need a new house. It doesn't have to be a 5-bedroom. It just has to be a new house, you know? And I think when we start creating a language that everybody understands, because it's like that fear of, I'm not gonna go downtown. I'm gonna stay uptown. You know, well, you won't find out about the thing unless you get into the thing, you know? And a lot of our policymakers don't do that. So what I like about this collaborative effort here is that I'm hearing things, you know, it's like going to the doctor and he said to me, you know, you're a PSA, and I'm going, what's a PSA? You know, I mean, these are things you have to learn to understand. So I walked out of the room with, my PSA, I better check that out, you know? So we have to start educating so that people can come to the table intelligently and say, the reason why I don't have a good house is because I lost my job. And when I lost my job, I had no income to support paying my rent. And my rent went up because my landlord raised it up 25 or 35 or 40%. I can't afford that based upon my wage. You know, so there's a lot of communication that needs to take place on both sides, pleasantly, if you will, so that we can figure out how to match this up and make it work. And I think some of that, and we're trying to do that with our program, is start advising people through the media, since that seems to be the leverage that gets people's attention. But I think it's a two-sided equation here. We've got to educate the less fortunate, and we've got to educate the fortunate and put everybody in the same room.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Dr. Rogers and James. Why don't we go into the next breakout so we can have more people participating in the conversation. Chintan, you want to kick that off with the next question?
That's great. Well, luckily, James's prescient comments have really made this job easier for me. So everyone, we're same drill, right? Kind of, you know, we all know our name and organization, but choose somebody to kind of organize the thoughts and discuss. And the topic is what specific federal, state, and or local policies can be enacted. So specific policies to increase diversity within the ecosystem, right? That's what we're trying to solve for in this conversation. What are the policies that we want to see at the state level, at the federal level, or at the local level? We'd love to hear some ideas.
Perfect. Take us away, Amanda.
Are we in? Is this our group? Oh, Leslie, got you again. Good. James, all right, good.
Amanda, are we going out in the group or is this?
I'm putting you guys in rooms right now manually.
Oh, okay, we're not in yet.
Oh, I see.
Hi, Benita. Hi, Benita.
Linda, how are you?
I'm glad today's over, but it went really well.
It went really well. Yeah, like, is this recorded? Is this going to be on the?
I don't think so. I think that the breakout sessions we're not posting.
Okay, great. I noticed like there's a huge drop off from the live stage to the Zoom.
Yeah.
So I'm not for sure, like tomorrow with the 2 sessions that we have, how to, I mean, I noticed like even among us, like colleagues, there's a huge drop off in comparison to the live stage and the Zoom.
I think that's super common. What that tells me is that some people are probably working and listening in the background and they can't join like a Zoom session right away. But also that a lot of people will just like have their computer stream happening. And then
do we know how many logged in today?
Many logged in. We're going to get a report at the end of the day and we'll be able to see how many individual user sessions there were.
Okay. And what about like the email? And I know there was a chat going on this morning with, I don't know why my computer's making that noise, with Mac's team and on the back end as relates to ensuring that those who registered for the original event were synced into that email that went out last night.
They were.
They were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen a single person in any of the helps like trying to get in. If they registered in that time.
Okay. There was some passionate conversation. I'm glad James and I forgot her name. Was it Phyllis? Got into a breakout session.
Yeah. Leslie,
yes. She got my
Hi, baby. Hi. I'm almost done. And then we're gonna cuddle so hard, I promise.
I think the most, when I looked at the Slack channel, like the session that garnished the most activity during their particular session was Janae and Demetrix session. And I tried to view module 3. You saw the message I received.
I think that means that he's editing them. And so he he changed transitions and he's adding the title slides and stuff. So that piece changes.
Okay, that makes sense. Is there, like for tomorrow, do you think we need to have a debrief, or are we good for tomorrow before the session starts tomorrow? Computer making that noise.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
For tomorrow, do you think we need to hold a debrief prior to the session starting, or are we good? Are we on a good track?
For tomorrow morning? No, I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think to be frank, like Amanda, I was way off on the breakout sessions because I was thinking of even if you got like a third of the registrants, you're talking about groups of 600 or 700 people and not managing the crowds. You almost don't you could almost leave them in. It's greater to bring them out and have more fluid conversations in smaller groups, but it's almost a manageable group what we have in our session this afternoon.
Yeah, I agree. They're all coming back in from their breakout now.
Okay.
I accidentally left my room a little bit early.
That's okay. Jeff, I was just messaging you that I let them all know. I let AP team know that we're going to do the closing at 5:20. So that'll give time for you to close here and everyone to navigate back to main stage.
Oh, thanks a lot. So we have to tap dance for 10 minutes.
No, not at all. I think it always takes a while to transition. So just let everyone
I see.
know.
Okay. We'll finish here at 15 and then go back. I see. Okay. Got it.
I was just talking to Amanda. Oh.
Hey, Jeff.
Amanda, are we all back? I heard there's Chintan. I think our numbers are dwindling.
It's been a long day.
I know, the valiant ones to the end.
Yes. Should be.
So what did we hear? Yeah, go ahead, Chintan.
This was a great conversation. I mean, despite it being kind of the end of a long day with a lot of thoughts and a lot of great ideas. So, the way we looked at it was, this is an opportunity to get specific, right? What are the policies, specific policies that can help kind of drive push the needle forward, drive the conversation forward towards this more inclusive, ecosystem. And so I'm gonna kind of call out Amanda for coming up with this great, this great point, which was that, we all can contribute in different ways, right? We all have different abilities. We all have different limitations, right? The idea that a lot of assumptions that we come to the table with is something that needs to be challenged, right? And the fact that I may have a different set of abilities than you might have, Jeff, doesn't mean that you and I can't both contribute, meaningfully in totally different ways, right? And so that recognition, I think,
I just want to say, I really appreciate that because you're far more handsome, way smarter, much faster, and everything else. So I appreciate that I have something still.
Yes, and you're much better at embarrassing me than I am.
Sorry to interrupt. I broke your flow. Go ahead.
No, not at all. But this idea, right? That and I think it can be a policy perspective, right? You have, let's talk about kind of differing abilities, right? You have an ADA, right, which is, a federal system of laws, right, that kind of say, all right, we'll mandate certain kind of access points and, this kinds of things, right? But you can also have policy initiatives that incentivize certain behaviors, that incentivize people to be more aware, that can incentivize people to be more inclusive, right? This idea of being more aware and inclusive, I think, is where we start from developing a more vibrant ecosystem, whatever that ecosystem happens to be. We're talking about an entrepreneurial ecosystem here, but I think that the point is, is something that's super applicable across the board. So that's one that I'd love to highlight.
I love it. Who hasn't had a chance to talk here with this group, or maybe you didn't talk much in your smaller groups, and wants to share something that you've been thinking about or something you heard in your small groups? Or did they were small enough that everybody could have a chance to talk?
Well, I can put one of my group members on the spot.
On the spot? Good. I was going to open it up widely. Go ahead.
Well, we got cut off right at the end as he was making, I thought a really, really good point. And I'd love, AG, I'd love for you to share your story, where you are, what you're working on, and then, and then the policy point that we just got a chance to start talking about. But, I think that the broader group would love to hear, about what you're up to.
And I would say the same thing for Sam, because we didn't get to hear Sam in our other group.
So we'll have time for those two comments, then we're going to go back to the main stage. AG, you're on mute. Sam's on the phone, so you can take your time.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm from the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa. So I'd like to share this story. What we have learned there, it's that we cannot all do like the same thing, like follow the same path, right? Because different countries has different problems and with different priorities, right? So I decided with my team, we created like a venture studio in my city. So our main goal is to solve like practical problems, real life problems. When we started it, we had a problem with capital. There's no like any access to capital there. No access to capital. So here's how I think with a global perspective, I think it would be really great if there is a way, any policy to make it easier for those who are in emerging markets or frontier economies, underdeveloped countries, to also get access to other big fund, venture capital firms here within the ecosystem. Because most of the time it's really difficult. And if we really want to create economic equity and equality, I think those are the questions maybe to keep in mind, how we can democratize the venture capital. So, but
Merci.
the solution that we came up with, we decided to create our own fund, within the venture studio. So it's still in the process. So, but we're getting there. That's the pathway that we're taking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Bonne idée, très bien dit. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Jeff.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
And then Sam, are you still on the phone? Okay, who wants the last comment? Andrew, you were nodding vigorously. Oh, Sam's off.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry for
no
the discontinuity. It was a personal emergency. Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm a social entrepreneur, and so I have a little bit of perspective on what it's like to try and manage public-private partnerships. And the short version of what I was talking about in our small group is that it's incredibly difficult to figure out how to have access to any kind of policymaker if you're really trying to work on innovative projects. And so there are definitely all kinds of different policy innovations that would be very beneficial for helping these projects become feasible and getting done. But the hard work of being somebody in charge of operating a project like that, I can't even imagine how people who have less access than I do understand how to identify somebody who can help them get something along, or somebody that's made room in their docket to be able to accommodate certain projects. And so I would love to see a movement to make, especially local governments and city governments more accessible, but also, county, state governments as well. Before all the funds are allocated, just so people understand what they can accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you both. Both fantastic points to bring up. Chintan, any wise words in closing?
So, what I would say is that, Jeff, what you are doing here, what Sorenson is doing and does year in and year out, is actioning the stuff that we're talking about here. You're building a community, you're supporting that community, you're fostering vibrant, kind of informed conversations, you're kind of raising the level of discourse, connectivity, right? Kind of awareness among a ever broadening group of people. So what I would say is I would just applaud you guys, you and your team especially, for kind of walking the walk and giving us such a great example of what we've been talking about here today.
No, thanks a lot. I appreciate that we're trying to do exactly that, to put things into action, to be doers and to help others be doers. So thanks.
Really.
Well, thank you all. We're going to transition back. Sorry for the clunkiness of going back and forth between these platforms, but we're going to go back to the main stage for the closing. And then we'll see hopefully all of you tomorrow. Thanks for your participation.
Thanks so much, everyone.
See you in a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.